All right, happy Thursday, everybody. Actually, I tried to make this video yesterday and my computer deleted it, so got to remake it. But real quick, we'll go over what happened Monday night in the Monday night game, if you want to call it that. The New York Giants really did not play. They scored a field goal, and that was it. Daniel Jones, I know he got strip sacked. He threw a pick six, and he got sacked 11 times by Seattle's defense. And the one thing I will say about this is why I had said previously that Dallas fans should pump the brakes on their defense. Like, yes, it's a very good defense, it's a very talented defense. No one is saying it's not. But I understand you can only play your schedule. You can only play the team that is on your schedule. Like that, you don't get to pick who you play. But for Dallas's defense, yes, it looks really good through the first four games. Well, three of the first four games, it didn't do anything against Arizona. But the three games it did good against, look at those offenses. You had a terrible offensive line with the Giants and Daniel Jones, who every year other than last year has been turnover prone. You play the Jets with offensive line issues and Zach Wilson, who was benched last year and has been turnover prone. And then you play the New England Patriots in week 4, who have offensive line issues. And Mac Jones is not, he's been an average to below average quarterback. He hasn't been good. He hasn't been, but necessarily hasn't necessarily been bad. And I mean, you force turnovers. So, like, pump the brakes a little bit because you've played three of the four teams you've played were weak offensive lines and you were able to take advantage. Like, yes, you have good talent. Yes, you're a good defense, but until you play somebody really good and your defense plays like that against somebody good, pump the brakes because it may not be what you think it is, basically. And I know how Dallas fans are. They take one game and they run with it. Uh, I mean, I saw a Dallas fan post on Facebook on Monday that he I'm paraphrasing here, but basically it said that Bill Belichick is no longer the best head coach in the NFL, that now Mike McCarthy is, because Mike McCarthy went from Hall of Famer with Aaron Rodgers to a Hall of Famer with Dak, which I'm not sure Dak's a Hall of Famer, but talked about how Mike McCarthy outcoached Bill Belichick, and but he didn't want to mention how Bill Belichick went from the greatest quarterback, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, to Mac Jones, who's not a good quarterback. Didn't want to mention that. And basically talking about how Mike McCarthy outcoached him and basically saying that Dallas is the best team in the NFC, that he doesn't want to hear anything about Philly because Philly barely beat a quarterback in his fourth start this past Sunday, saying he wasn't worried about Philly. But at the same time, he didn't want to mention the week before that Dallas got beat by Josh Dobbs, who was in like his fourth or fifth start as a quarterback. So, like, he definitely twisted it and saw what he wanted to see and ignored what he wanted to ignore. So, again, at this point, I think most teams in the NFL should be pumping the brakes on their expectations. It's the beginning of October. Expectations really shouldn't be established, or you really shouldn't be holding teams to those expectations until December, January. But Dallas plays San Francisco in San Francisco this week. The team that's bounced them from the playoffs the last 2 years. Even if you go into San Francisco and win, I still think you should pump the brakes, because beating San Francisco in October doesn't really mean a whole lot. Beating them in January will mean a lot. And who these teams are in January may not be who they are right now. So, win or lose, I think you should pump the brakes. But anyway, now that I'm off that soapbox, real quick, we have the Thursday night game tonight. It is the Bears on the road playing Washington. I believe it's on the road, but I'm going to pick the Bears to go ahead and get their first win of the season. Although, if I were the Bears, I would not want to win because currently they hold the number one and the number two picks of the next draft, and winning would cause one of those to change most likely. But it's early in the season; they're going to win some. They'll still have two really good picks, but with their pick and Carolina's pick. But I think I think Justin Fields and DJ Moore started to get on the same page last week. I think their offense coordinator called a good game against Denver, got Justin Fields involved in the passing game early, and I think he'll do the same. And after seeing what A.J. Brown did against this defense, I think DJ Moore is capable of doing something similar. So I'm going to take Chicago to win their first game of the season tonight. Now that that's over with, I'm going to go over. So we're at the quarter mark of the season, essentially, and some of the awards that I had predicted, we're going to see where they stand. So I had predicted Justin Herbert to win MVP. He is currently at 1,100 yards, fifth most in the league, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 106 rating. Pretty solid. He's going to need to improve on the yards, maybe a little bit on the touchdowns, and the Chargers are going to have to win quite a bit the remainder of the season if he wants to win MVP. So at the quarter mark, my current predictions are I think I think your top two most likely people to win MVP at this point in the season is either Josh Allen or Christian McCaffrey. Josh Allen has 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, which that four is a lot, but 3 of them came in week one. And having a bad week one really doesn't matter in the MVP race because in 2021, when Rodgers won his second in a row, the Saints murdered Green Bay week one. And I believe Rodgers threw 1 or 2 picks that game. I think he threw two, but I think he only threw 2 or 3 the rest of the year, maybe 4 the rest of the year. And I mean, he won MVP. So I think Josh Allen can definitely bounce back from that. He's currently sitting at 1,050 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and he also has 106 rating like Herbert. But the thing about Josh Allen is over his last 3 games. So if you take out week one, weeks 2, 3, and 4, he is completing 75% of his passes. He has 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he also has only has 6 off-target throws by I forget the whether it's next gen or whatever, but 6 off-target throws over 3 weeks, but 8 touchdowns. So he has more touchdowns than he has missed throws, essentially. So with their running game being more productive, takes a lot of pressure off him as a quarterback. He doesn't have to try to run and pass and do it all, so he gets to sit back and relax. And I think if Buffalo rolls through their schedule, beats a lot of good teams that they'll be playing, a lot of playoff teams from last year. They also play Philly and Dallas both, so chance to beat both of them. So 2 NFC playoff teams from last year. Josh Allen definitely could be on his way to an MVP. The other person, Christian McCaffrey, if he doesn't win MVP, I think he is one of 2 people that's most likely to win Offensive Player of the Year. McCaffrey is leading the league in rushing yards by almost 100 yards. He has 6 touchdowns. On the ground, he has almost 200 yards receiving and a touchdown through the air. So he's on pace for close to 1,800 yards and 24 touchdowns on the ground, close to 30 total touchdowns. And I think that's what it will take for a running back to win MVP is close to 2,000 yards, maybe a little more over rushing yards, maybe 22 to 2,500 all-purpose yards, and close to 30 touchdowns. And McCaffrey can do it. He is on the team that uses him in a way that he could do it, and he has the skill set to allow him to do it. So um, he's kind of in the MVP race for me and Offensive Player of the Year. The other person in Offensive Player of the Year would be Justin Jefferson. He is on pace for roughly 2,200 yards over the course of the season. So he could be the first wide receiver to break 2,000 yards in a season. He's only got 3 touchdowns. He would need to, if he wanted to get into the MVP conversation, he would need to get those touchdowns up a lot. Uh, he would need close to 20 touchdowns and definitely over 2,000 yards. I know Cooper Kupp came real close a couple years ago. I think Justin Jefferson could do it. He's definitely on pace to do it through the first 4 games. So that's my other Offensive Player of the Year candidate at the quarter mark. Now, my preseason prediction was Jamar Chase. Obviously, with Joe Burrow's injury, Jamar Chase is kind of out of the runnings of that at the moment. So I'm gonna have to chalk that one up as an L. My Defense Player of the Year, I had TJ Watt, and currently he is tied for most sacks in the NFL with 6, tied with Khalil Mack. So I also had mentioned, Myles Garrett could be up there. He is at 5.5 sacks. Michael Parsons, he's at 4 sacks, and also either one of the Bosa brothers, but both of them are down on the list on sacks. So currently, TJ Watt looking good, looking like a possible Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Um, Defense Rookie of the Year, I had Jalen Carter. I think that's who I had. Let me look at my notes real quick. Yes, that is who I had, and he is currently, I think he is in the front run for that. He's had some very impactful games. He's had a lot of big plays, forced fumbles. He's forced at least one I remember seeing. He's had some really good tackles, some good sacks. So I think he's definitely your defense rookie of the year. I had Bijan Robinson as my offense rookie of the year, and I think that is currently up between him and CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is currently top 5 in yards. He's had through his first 4 games, he's threw 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think with Houston being 2-2 and in that division, if Houston can pull off a winning record and CJ Stroud has a good year, 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 yards, a good touchdown to interception ratio, I think he will likely win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's definitely in the driver's seat right now because Bijan he's putting up some good numbers. I mean, he's top 5 in rushing yards, but he's not getting the touchdowns. So he's going to need to improve in that area if he really wants to win it. But yeah, I think those are your top 2 most likely win Offensive Rookie of the Year right now. Comeback Player of the Year, I had Damar Hamlin. I thought he would get a lot of sympathy votes for the fact that he went into cardiac arrest on the field and made the team the next year, and he actually finally got on the field and actually played this past weekend, mainly on special teams. But a couple other worthy candidates for that. I think TJ Watt will be, with being injured last year and coming back this year healthy and having, if he's one of the sack leaders, I think he'll be a good candidate for comeback player of the year. You can also probably throw in Baker Mayfield after getting bounced around, to a few teams last year. He seems like he's found a new home in Tampa and has them leading the division and has had them looking pretty good in most games. So he can definitely pull a Geno Smith type situation and win comeback player of the year. Coach of the year, I had Robert Saleh, and that was obviously going to be banking off Aaron Rodgers doing a lot for the team. And obviously, with his injury, Robert Saleh out of the runnings. Now, if Zach Wilson played really good Sunday night against the Chiefs, if that can continue and the Jets can get a few wins, and I mean, it looks like Aaron Rodgers' recovery and rehab is off to a very quick start. I mean, most of the time people are in walking boots for 6 weeks, and he said he was in a tennis shoe in 13 days. So it looks like he very well could make a comeback towards the end of the season. And if that's the case, if the Jets can hang on and happen to be in the wild card hunt, then yes, I think Robert Saleh could win Coach of the Year. But otherwise, I think your most likely candidates at this point, D'Amico Ryans, I think, is doing a pretty good job in Houston. He's beat Jacksonville. He's got a division win on the road. C.J. Stroud, I've already mentioned, is playing pretty well for a rookie. So if he can pull off a winning record or close to a winning record, be in the wild card hunt towards the end of the year, after the way the team looked last year, I think D'Amico Ryans can definitely be in the Coach of the Year conversation. Um, I think you could probably put Mike McDaniel in there a little bit. You know, if Miami's offense is a top offense this year, Tua is healthy, I think you could probably throw him in there. And I think you could throw in, oh God, Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, Detroit's head coach. He seems to have that team turned around. He seems to have the culture changed. They're no longer that team that is in games and then loses them, that finds a way to lose. They're now the team that either dominates games or they're in them and they find ways to win. So I think he's a very good candidate for Coach of the Year. Some of my bold predictions that fell through: Stafford or Aaron Donald gets traded. The Rams are actually playing pretty well, so I don't see that happening. Jets win the division, obviously with Aaron Rodgers his injury not happening. Packers win their division. It's possible, but it's not off to a good start. Green Bay's coaching situation, LaFleur's offensive play calling has not been good for a first-year starting quarterback and all rookie or second-year wide receivers. That's going to have to get more consistent and get better. And the defense, Joe Barry I think he needs to be gone, but his defense has not been good the whole time he's been there. The run defense has not been good, so he's got to make some major changes, and this defense has to play better. Cowboys get third in their division. I was banking that banking that on the Giants being a better coached team than Dallas, and they may be a better coached team, but with their injuries and their offensive line, there's no way New York's going to get second in that division with Dallas getting third. And the Jags winning the 1 seed with the way they lost to Houston and then lost to Kansas City. I don't think they're on track to win the 1 seed anymore. And then this week they're playing Buffalo, who's playing really well. They lose to Buffalo, they'll have 2 losses to top teams in the AFC that'll all be in the race for the 1 seed, so they'll be out of that. The one bold prediction that could actually happen, I said Davante Adams could request a trade from the Raiders. They're sitting at 1-3 right now, playing Green Bay Monday night. If they get beat by Adams' former team, be sitting at 1-4 right before the trade deadline. He's already made the comments to the media that he doesn't have time to sit and wait for the rest of the team to figure it out, whether he's talking about the coaching staff or the quarterback or what. So if they're sitting at 1-4 next week, you could see a Davante Adams trade. Now, real quick, I'll go over my preseason division rankings. I had for the NFC in the North, I had Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago. The only thing that may change there, I still think Detroit wins the division. Green Bay could get second, Minnesota third, Bears is going to be fourth. In the West, I have San Fran, Seattle, LA, and Arizona. I think Seattle and LA, I think they could easily flip-flop and either one be second or third. But San Fran still wins. Arizona still gets last. The South, I had New Orleans, Tampa, Atlanta, Carolina. I think Tampa wins it. New Orleans gets second. Atlanta third. Carolina fourth. The East, I had Philly, Dallas, New York, Washington. At this point, I think Washington could actually get third and New York fourth, but I still think Philly wins and Dallas gets second. The only change to my playoff predictions, I had Minnesota as a wild card team. I now think that the Rams are a wild card team. So your 7 playoff teams in the NFC division winners: Detroit, San Fran, Tampa Bay, and Philly, and your wild cards: Dallas, Seattle, and LA Rams. In the AFC, in the North, I had the Bengals, the Ravens, Steelers, Browns. With the way the Bengals have been playing and the Steelers have been playing and both teams' injuries, I think they're going to be third and fourth. Could be either one as third or fourth. And I think the Ravens probably win the division. Browns get second. The West, I have Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders. Nothing changes. South, I have Jags, Titans, Texans, Colts. I'm going to leave that also the same, although Colts, Titans, and Texans could all flip flop 2, 3, 4, but I think the Jags win the division. And the East, I boldly predicted the Jets win the division, followed by the Bills, Dolphins, Patriots. With the Aaron Rodgers injury, if things don't drastically change and Zach Wilson continues to play well, if he does not continue to play well like he did last week, then the Jets are going to get last in that division, and that's going to be a Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets. So that would make the quarter mark playoff predictions: the Ravens, Chiefs, Jags, and Bills as division winners, and the Browns, Chargers, and Dolphins as wild card teams. I almost said playoff wild card. So that kind of wraps up the quarter mark updates on the NFL, and I also gave my prediction for the Bears to win tonight. Another thing to look forward to: not a whole lot of good college football action this weekend. Not a lot of highly ranked teams playing each other, but you do have the staple of early October, which is the Red River rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma, which played in Dallas at the State Fair at the Cotton Bowl. Texas ranked number 3, Oklahoma ranked 12. The winner of this will be in the driver's seat to win the Big 12, possibly. If it's Texas and they win, they'll be in the driver's seat to not only win the Big 12, but get into the college football playoffs. Oklahoma, they would jump. I would assume they would go from 12 to somewhere around 5, 6, and they could also be in position for a playoff berth if they maintained through the rest of the season. So really a big game for both teams. It's a big rivalry game. That's I tend to somewhatly be a Texas fan, so I will be watching and rooting for Texas. But that's always a fun game to watch, because especially when you pan around the crowd and it's literally at the halfway point of the stadium, it's a dead split of one side being maroon and one side being burnt orange. And you can say crimson. I don't know what color Oklahoma really is, but there's definitely a solid divide halfway down that stadium on both sides of and I think it's in the end zones, and it's like one side of the stadium being for Texas and the other side for Oklahoma. Always a electric atmosphere in that game, and it's really the best game this weekend. So hopefully that turns out to be as entertaining and as hyped up as the build up has been. But I'll get on here either tomorrow, which is Friday, or Saturday, give the rest of my NFL predictions for week 5. But until then, enjoy the weekend, enjoy some football.